Well, it's always sunny when it comes to Peter Switzer, the founder of the Switzer Report. Good morning to you, Peter. Thank you for joining us. Now, with all this talk of recession that's going on, how are things doing for us?
Yeah, well, Pete, the thing is this. The question I asked this morning in the piece I was writing for switzer.com.au was, how come the stock market keeps going up and, you know, the outlook for the Australian economy is not all that bad? In fact, I got some numbers during the week from the chief economist at Morgan's, a guy by the name of Michael Knox. And I was quite surprised, and you'd be surprised to hear this, that he looked at the economic growth outlook for Australia and the USA. For this year, we're 2.5%, he reckons. USA 2.3%, and look, next year we're at 2.8%, and Donald Trump's beloved America 2.1%. So the economic outlook for Australia is actually on the improve, while the yanks are on the decline. And also people are asking me, well, what about the inverted yield curve and the recession headlines? If a recession shows up, and the history is not consistent that it always does, that it's usually 18 months or 2 years before the recession shows up. And in between, the stock market goes up on average, wait for it, 15%. So that's probably the reason why a lot of professionals aren't all that worried about all this talk about an inverted yield curve.
OK, so you've basically got a graph that's doing that, you know, we're on the up. Well, try and do that properly. We're on the up and the US is on the way down anyway. What does this mean for the long term?
Well, it basically means that, you know, all these negative headlines one day could come to reality, but they're such a long way off. My argument is, why isn't Scott Morrison, Josh Frydenberg and how about the Small Business Minister, Michaelia Cash, out there actually telling people that, all right, things aren't looking good statistically at the moment in terms of a yield curve, but the outlook for the Aussie economy is actually on the improve. I reckon that would be a pretty positive message to get out there to consumers and business. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, for sure. I think the Prime Minister and the Treasurer are out there doing that very thing because they're talking about the tax cuts, which, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, but they haven't come into play yet, have they? So is the expectation that will help things even further in the months ahead?
Yeah, look, some people have started to receive them, but let's face it, with all those negative headlines, a lot of people are probably sitting on their hands saying, gee, I better keep this just in case this recession stuff shows up. I think if a lot of people realise that the consistency of that message, that a recession shows up after an inverted yield curve, wasn't all that consistent. I think Shane Oliver pointed out 5 times it hasn't happened in Australia in recent times. I think a lot more people would be prepared to say, I might use that money to go and buy myself a new TV or go on holidays. Yeah,
well, OK, so we've talked about the positives. Are there any negatives out there at the moment, Pete, that you are worried about?
Yeah. Look, consumer confidence did fall during the week. It's the weekly measure, and Craig James reckons, well, that's closely linked to the fact that all these negative headlines are out there. I don't like the fact that we're not... Well, in fact, petrol prices rose this week. Yes. It was a record rise, up 4.3 cents a litre. Now, it seems like an insignificant economic piece of data, but it's a really important point for people out there who want to consume. So those things are worrying me. Pete, if I look at the run of economic data that's coming through, last week we saw consumer confidence went up. That's the Westpac one, the monthly one, which I think is the better one to look at. And business confidence also sneaked up as well. I think we need at least a month or two before we say it's working or it's not working. But the point you made only a moment ago, so the tax cuts are only just starting to come in. And people like you are so busy, you probably haven't put in your tax return yet. Is that a fair question? That's right. Well, most people haven't, and so I think the Reserve Bank's going to wait until Cup Day or around that mark, and if the uptick in economic data is not really showing, they'll cut again. And a lot of economists do think that we'll see another cut on Cup Day. But I talked to about 5 fund managers this week because I did a conference around the country, and not one of them are running around their offices saying, oh, inverted yield curve, I'd better stop investing. Most of them are still investing pretty strongly. Yeah,
and all the other people are still on the websites trying to work out what the inverted yield curve actually means. People outside of the business sector anyway. Hey, Peter, unfortunately we've run out of time, mate. It's always great to chat to you on a Friday morning, though. Hope you have a great weekend.
Same to you, buddy.